Learned to play an instrument. Learned a second language. Applied to college. Applied for a loan. Started a business. Started a blog. Shared a picture. Shared a moment. Turn your wish list into a checklist with Internet Essentials from Comcast. When you're connected, you're ready for anything.
Yes! What a steal.
It doesn't get better than that.
Doesn't get better than that.
My name's Reese.
Reese Henning.
Hello, I'm Ivan Weiner, Executive Director of the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience. Welcome to AFMX 2020, the virtual edition. As COVID-19 impacted so many festivals around the world, we are very fortunate and happy to be able to present an incredible program, thanks to our sponsors and our volunteers. Because of them, we're able to continue our tradition of bringing together filmmakers, musicians, students, and an entire community to share stories and collaborate into the future. This year we have 73 incredible film projects, with filmmakers doing live Q&As after their screenings. We also have our intimate conversation series that we'll be offering for free through Facebook Live. Please go to our website, abqfilmx.com, get your tickets for all of the events, see where you need to go for the free ones, and share with all of your friends on social media. It's going to be a week to remember. You can also make a small contribution through the ticketing pages for any of the events to the AFME Foundation. Finally, I'd like to thank our core team of staff members and volunteers who have worked so hard to bring the virtual experience to life. Kira, Ariella, Carly, Cindy, Shane, Sabrina, Barbara, Jerry, Sean, and Sam, this fest is for you. And it's for all of the volunteers who have contributed over the past 8 years of AFMX. From all of us at the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience, thank you. Now, let's fest. Good afternoon on this beautiful Sunday, and welcome to the AFMX Intimate Conversation Series. This is the final one of AFMX 2020, the virtual edition, and I could not be happier to have dear friend Annika Marks and director Rich Newey here joining us. We're going to be discussing their feature film titled Killing Eleanor, what their journey has been from script and getting their film out into the world. This is something that every independent filmmaker and, feature filmmaker, wants to talk about and discuss. Everybody has a story, and a lot of them have the ups and downs in the stories, some funny times, some frustrating times, some stressful times, but we're in this business because we love film and we love making film and music, and we're going to dive into, what their experience was like. So I'd like to welcome Annika Marks and Rich Newey.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Annika.
I was saying thank you for having us.
Oh, of course, absolutely. I wanted to start off by reading your bios quickly so the audience knows who you are and what we're looking forward to going into this conversation. So, Rich Newey, after earning his BFA from the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, he jumped into the world of music videos and commercials. Over the span of 14 years, he's collaborated with an array of A-list music artists, including Phil Collins. We have a mutual friend there, Christina Aguilera, Akon, Sean Paul, Sean Kingston, Tiesto, 3-6 Mafia, Ice Cube, Mark Ronson, Bone Thugs and Harmony, as well as a diverse brands such as Midway Games, General Motors, Adidas, Procter and Gamble, DeVry University, Bally Fitness. So he's shot some really good stuff. A storyteller at heart, Rich transitioned into episodic television directing. He's directed multiple episodes of Beauty and the Beast for the CW, as well as Rain. For NBC, he directed an episode of Blind Spot and was brought in to direct pickups and reshoots on 10 episodes of Heroes Reborn. For Freeform, he's directed episodes of The Fosters and Stitchers. He also directed multiple episodes of Carter for Sony International and multiple episodes of Good Witch for Hallmark. Most recently, he directed an episode of God Friended Me for CBS. Rich directed and edited the award-winning short film The Games We Play, which was his first collaboration with Annika Marks through their Let's Try One Productions banner. Killing Eleanor is their first feature together, which he directed and edited. So we're not just going to talk about his directing today, but the editing process also. The film stars Marks along with Jenny O'Hara, Jane Kaczmarek, Betsy Brandt, Breaking Bad fame, Albuquerque, Cameron Manheim, and others. Newey and Marks are currently in pre-production on their second feature called Adult Children, and their third feature, titled The Tipping Point, is being produced by Rob Barnum. So that kind of shows you we are working with somebody here in this conversation, and Rich, that has some experience under his belt, and I want you to keep this in mind for the audience, experience under his belt, and is going to teach us a lot, I think, in this conversation today about the directing platform and editing when it comes to independent features. Let's go on to Annika Marks and her bio. You probably recognize Annika. Let me say this before reading her bio. You've probably met her several times here in Albuquerque and in New Mexico. She's worked on Waco. She's worked on some other great projects here in New Mexico, but she's been a really instrumental part of Albuquerque film and music experience as a filmmaker, as an actor. And, it's always just such a pleasure having her in person or virtually now. So let's get into this bio. Annika is a multi-hyphenate storyteller with decades of experience. Her pilot, Childless, has been optioned by Gemstone Studios, Sony, where it's currently in development. She's also developing a feature with Gilbert Films. Her first feature as a writer-producer, Killing Eleanor, was worked on with Rich, and I'm not going to continue reading all of the information of who starred in those. Marks began her career as an actor and is probably best known as Monty Porter on Freeform's The Fosters. Highlights include Fox Searchlight's The Sessions, amazing movie, and didn't that win an award at Sundance?
Mm-hmm. Yep, the Special Jury Award for Ensemble Acting. Yeah.
And that was with like William H. Macy, and oh my God, the list goes on. We'll talk about that. Let me continue. Sorry, I get so excited talking about all your different projects. The miniseries Waco, which can be seen on Netflix, as well as The Last Tycoon and Goliath for both for Amazon. Coming soon, she can be seen starring opposite Cole Hauser in The Last Champion and starring opposite P.J. Byrne in The World Without You, an adaptation of Joshua Hankins' celebrated novel. Marks transitioned to writing and producing with a series of shorts, including The Games We Play, won the Audience Award winner at Sonoma Film Festival, Stay Filthy, Callie, a raunchy comedic PSA series narrated by Bruce Campbell, and Me, You, A Bag and Bamboo for the Savannah Film Festival. Marks has participated in countless workshops and development series, including the Sundance Labs, She's an active member of Safe House, a writers group founded by Jim Yules, and as a 2020 Women in Film Writers Circle mentee. She's a graduate of the Circle in the Square Theater Conservatory in New York City. And it's once again just so great to have you both here. I want to remind the audience before we get into the conversation, really take this deep dive, that you can ask questions in the chat, and we're going to answer as many of the questions as possible towards the end of the conversation. I want to start off with Rich. Music videos to feature films. Was there a specific film and or music video that made you say, that is what I want to do with my life? I mean, did you start directing right away out of school, or did you work your way up in the industry to become a director?
I was fortunate. The school I went to, the Academy of Art, it was a very hands-on technical school. So we had, access to, we were shooting on 35 and we were editing on Avid, and they were big advocates, first of editing, and that's how I got my editing background. But second to just make things. And so I left school with a reel, a few short films, but mostly music videos and commercials. And subsequently, I ended up getting signed straight out of school in Los Angeles as a music video director. Now, that sounds great, but it took a minute to actually get a job. So I actually I was signed as a director, but then I was writing for all these different other directors as a treatment writer and a concept writer. And so that kind of got me going. And within a year, I was directing my own videos. As far as influence, I in the period between high school and my professional career, the films that really stuck out to me and guided me, Pulp Fiction was a huge influence on me, as was 12 Monkeys. Those two films, I think, really, really just grabbed me. In that moment when I was trying to decide, well, do I want to be a filmmaker? Like, can I be a filmmaker? And, as far as music videos go, there's really some amazing mentors that have transitioned from music videos to features and television that I saw music videos as a stepping stone, because I ultimately did want to make film. I wanted to make TV. And I said, okay, well, if I can work right away now in the industry and make some cool stuff, great. And I'm going to copy what these guys did and leapfrog, like David Fincher or Spike Jonze. And I have a mentor in Marco Siega who directed some huge videos and now is a big TV director. And, we're actively working together. So, yeah, I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it does. And, it's interesting because taking that leap from music videos and into television and film, there's definitely different processes in each form. So let's talk about that. I mean, what is the difference between writing and directing for music videos, television, and feature film? What are those differences to you? I mean, what's the process?
When I was trying to book my first TV show and I was just a music video director and a commercial director, it was kind of like, well, that's great. Your pictures look pretty, but can you direct actors? So that was a big hurdle for me to begin with. And that's why I sought out and made a few more short films in the interim between music videos and actually jumping into episodic television, just to show that I can direct actors and, can make a cool, compelling narrative story. So that was a big part of that process and that leap. But, for me, especially when you talk about independent features like Killing Eleanor or television, those schedules are fast and rapid, and there's no time. You don't get to go back. Once you're wrapped on that set, you're there's no reshoots. It's not a big budget feature. So the skills I learned as a music video director and as an editor early on, I think really they're part of my toolbox as a TV director.
So let me ask you this, going from music videos, you built some amazing relationships in that field. As a director in film and television, do you have some say in some of the music that's utilized for the shows or the film?
Not so much in television. It's kind of, you're a cog in the machine, and you're part of the bigger process, which I love the collaboration process, and I love working with showrunners and writers, and it's really their medium. I'm kind of brought in to service their vision and I'll, bring my unique take on it, but fit within what that show is, right? When it comes to film, I think you do have a lot more say, especially in our film. You know, we were able to make it independently, and because I was the editor and we were producing it, and you know, we could kind of do what we wanted. So I had a lot of sticky fingers when it came to music in the movie.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think, you know, what we'll find is a lot of the independent filmmakers that are watching and those around the world, you know, you do get to make some decisions and pull in some people that are really talented on the music end, you know, to add storyline. Because, I mean, all in all, I think music is a character in a film or television show.
100%.
So,
And I called back on some old favors, you know, from the music video days to bring in our music supervisors. These two guys called the Co-Stars, and I mean, they've written gigantic hits and produced gigantic artists. And I said, you know, hey guys, remember that freebie I did for you a while back? I need a song. So that worked.
it's not what you know sometimes, but who you know, and you know, favors that you did for them in the past.
100%.
So no, that's great. Annika, you know, I think you're just an incredible actor, actress up on screen. Would you prefer to be called actor or actress?
I don't know. I've been going with actor the last like decade or so. I think it's,
Okay.
you know, it's part of my leaning in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What so when did you know you wanted to be an actor? And you know, I mean, was it when you were a little girl, when you know you were in high school and were in a play? When did you know that this is a path you wanted to pursue to be an actor?
I really wanted to be a dancer as a kid. I mean, I think I was always a performer. I think all of my younger siblings would attest to that. I held them captive and made them watch me perform, you know, relentlessly. So I think I always wanted to be a performer. I thought the thing that I was a dancer for a very, very long time. And I focused I was always a very disciplined young artist. So I focused on dancing and was determined to be the best at it. And when I was a teenager, I realized like it wasn't really fitting for me. I was really interested in classical ballet. I'm not built for classical ballet. So it was kind of in the heartbreak of realizing that I was losing my first love and like losing the performance discipline that I thought I was kind of designed for, that I discovered acting. And you know, it let me hold on to all the things that I loved about dancing the most, which turned out to be the performance part. And you know, I went to Circle in the Square when I was right out of high school. I moved to New York and went to that conservatory. And I think it was there that I realized um, that I think you know, I don't know how great of a dancer I ever was. That I think the thing that had always been really appealing to me was performance and storytelling. And so, yeah, I feel like I just discovered acting a bit later than a lot of actors, but I always knew I was an artist, and I just had to find my medium. And then I feel like the same thing is true about discovering that I was a writer. Like I feel like a little bit of a late bloomer in that as well, but it feels like a continuation of the same journey, which is that my identity as an artist started kind of constricted and small and has just sort of expanded slowly as I've realized like the only thing standing in my way is my own limitations on the kind of artist that I think I am. So
Yeah.
it's just slowly gotten bigger.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because you know, and we can jump into that, but the end part of this, I guess, little conversation within the conversation is going to be, how did you know that you wanted to be a producer and a writer? So let's go back and let's talk about you know, your first television role or film role, and you know, let's start talking about that and see how that developed, where you wanted to move your way into producing and writing as well.
Yeah, I willingness to produce. So you know, I think I spent a lot of years, like a lot of artists do. I think I spent a lot of years thinking producing is something that other people do. You know, like I would have no idea how to produce. That just feels like something people with college degrees do, or something. Like I had an attitude about producing like it was something I couldn't possibly wrap my own head around. And it took a lot of years of being frustrated by having ideas and wanting to create content and realizing that I was waiting for permission or waiting for somebody else to come along and empower me and the stories that I wanted to tell, before I thought, all right, well, what if I just start putting one foot in front of the other and figure it out? And like, if I hit a roadblock, I'll find the right person to ask the right question. And I think, you know, I almost accidentally turned into a producer, and now I love producing, because what I've discovered in the process of producing is you have the opportunity as a producer to create a work environment that you want to work on and that you want to invite other people to collaborate with you. That experience of being able to create the environment that's like full of creative empowerment and respect and enthusiasm, and I have loved that part so much that the parts of producing that I thought I didn't want to do turned out to be like, well, if that's the means to this end and the end is that exciting, then I'm willing to do it, you know, again and again and again. So producing has been really more about empowerment for me. Writing is something that I feel like it just took me a very, very long time to have the courage to show people the stuff I was writing, but I had always been writing. I've been writing just sort of in secret since I was really young, and never had the confidence around it to share it. And actually, I have to say, this is probably when I should share that Rich and I are married. But it was really when we got together and I started showing Rich the things that I was writing, that he was like, well, you're the only thing you're missing here is a little bit of like discipline, because I would get lost in things and I wouldn't finish them, and I had a lot of ideas and not a lot of structure. And Rich comes from a film school structured mentality, so he was like, well, read this book, and watch this podcast, or listen to this podcast and watch this interview, and that turned out to be kind of all I needed, was somebody in my corner saying, you have everything you need, you just have to sit down and do it.
And, it's interesting you bring that up, because we talk about all the time, daily, with every event we do, relationships and collaboration. And, you two being married, of course, you have each other's ear at all times. But, even in other partnerships within the industry, the collaborative effort and supporting one another, cheering them on, wanting your partner to be the best they can be is a really, really important thing. And I personally noticed after you and Rich met and were married that, this creative eruption like a volcano happened.
Yeah.
It really did. And the writing and the producing end of things, the acting is there. You're great at it. The writing, you said that you kept things bottled up a bit, and you really took it to the next level, I think, when you had that creative partner in Rich. And, for you two to produce what you did and direct and edit and put out there with the final product of Killing Eleanor, I'm really blown away by it. I think you two are a force to be reckoned with.
Well, and I want to say, if there's any actors listening that really can relate to this, that I think this is something that a lot of actors do. Like, one of the things that I've sort of come to now at this point in my career is this business tells you to stay in your lane. And when you get into the business really young, at least if you're like me, like I wanted to do it right. And so I stayed strictly in my lane. And I think I would encourage anybody that has ideas to explore them, and to not allow the boundaries that are false boundaries that keep actors completely reliant on other people. And making film is cheap now, right? Writing software is cheap now. Like, there's nothing standing in your way except these kind of, these boundaries that we agreed to that are not actually there. There's like, they're these like false constructs, So I think the sort of the getting rid of those and dismantling of those is the biggest gift that I got in this sort of transition that has a huge amount to do with finding the right partner.
Yeah. Let's get into we talked about Rich mentioned several people that were mentors to him in the industry. Who were some of your mentors, as you were acting and then getting into writing? Who did you look up to? Who did you build relationships with, along this journey?
And I think about mentors. I think the first person that comes to my mind is a guy named Chris Kaiser, who's been in my corner forever and ever and ever. And he created Party of Five. He's been working forever. He's his show The Society is on Netflix. He's always been working, and he was a huge champion of mine as an actor. But was always saying to me, "You are so disciplined, and you've got all these great ideas, and I think you're really a writer." And I needed that. I needed somebody in my corner who could see me in both ways. And he has never stopped supporting me as an actor, but also has let me do things like shadow his writer's room to get familiar with that process. And Dawn Steinberg is another person in my life she's the head of casting at Sony and has championed me as an actor forever and ever and ever. But she is the reason I'm working with Sony now as a writer, is because she was the person passing my script around at that company. So to me, those have been the people who are so influential, or the people who saw my talent as being more expansive than even I did, maybe at first. I don't think I can ever really measure that faith in me that people like that had.
Well, yeah, it's interesting you say that, and I want everybody to listen to that, because there's people that see talent within you that you may not see yourself, and they let you know about it, and people are not afraid to mentor other people, and when you have people experienced in the industry who say, hey, I am happy to help you, don't take that with a grain of salt, because there's so many people that say, wow, I can't believe, Robert Redford just said, hey, if I need anything, to get in touch with them. And if you don't take advantage of those things, you may be letting something wonderful slip by. And, everybody should take advantage of those type of opportunities. Let's change the topic a little bit. The past 7 months now, 8 months have been tumultuous for all of us, not just for one group of people, not just the acting community, but the world. And COVID-19 has had a major effect where it brought television, film, music videos, everything to pretty much a standstill, where everybody had to stay at home and watch what was going to happen. How did both of you get through this really difficult time period that we're still going through, by the way? Rich, how did you get through it? What on the creative side, did you feel as if that affected your creative abilities,
It's interesting because, Annika is an incredibly prolific writer. Oh, am I coming in okay, guys?
Yeah. Yep.
Annika's an incredibly prolific writer, and I am a very slow writer. I love to write, but I'm really slow. And I hadn't written in a really, really long time. I was focused on the directing stuff, and I just wasn't inspired. And I saw Annika churning out all this stuff, and it's all really good. And I was like, wow, I really need to write something, because that looks like a lot of fun. And it was right before the pandemic hit, really. And I had a meeting with a mentor friend of mine, and I pitched him an idea. He said, I think it's really great. You should write it. And without any promise of anything, I just said, okay, well, great. I'm just going to write it. I'm just going to do it. Why not? And I churned it out and worked on it. And all through the pandemic, we've now been developing it to go pitch. So it's been an amazing process. This is as far as I've ever gotten in trying to sell a show, and it's just been really great being able to stay creative, like you said, in this time when so many of us can't be creative because of these roadblocks that are in the way. So I think we both feel very lucky to have been able to and we help each other, right? Like we are a really good partnership in that we push each other, creatively. So that helps.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think the audience does as well. When you felt like you weren't inspired, and this is a question, I guess, for both of you, not feeling inspired, it takes a toll on people. It really does, and you had each other to, lean on, so to say. what did it feel like, Rich, when that inspiration went away? Because, I talked to, and I can openly say this, talked to Snuffy Walden yesterday, who was the music composer for the Wonder Years. He literally told us that he thought he was going to be pushed into retirement because of COVID. And this is somebody who is a prolific television composer and, film composer, who said, his inspiration completely went out the window and he thought he was done. I mean, did you reach any point like that, or did you, what brought that inspiration back? I mean, was it Annika and her writing and seeing that? Was it your friend?
I mean, I'm an incredibly, as my wife will tell you, I'm an incredibly stubborn person. And I think that translates to perseverance in this business. And I think, beyond even talent, I think you need to have perseverance, because it just takes, one thing sometimes to kind of take you over to the next level. And, if you give up too soon, you might miss that one thing that could have taken you there. So I think above talent, above anything, you have to be perseverant. You have to just believe in yourself, and you have to just keep pushing yourself. And I just, I was uninspired. I knew I was going to write again, and obviously I was going to direct again, but I couldn't direct because everything was shut down. So, I kept getting in my own way when I started to write and overthinking it. And for whatever reason, I definitely credit Annika for some of this. But I also just credit just maybe it was just this idea of not being able to do anything else. And I wasn't going to sit and watch TV for 9 months.
Right.
Let's just write and see what happens. And I just let go. I really just let go.
Annika, question for you. What surprised you most about yourself during the shutdown?
Well, this is an interesting thing about making a transition from, and I actually try not to use the word transition. I try to use the word expansion, because I don't think that I've left one thing for the other. But I've been an actor for 20 years. That is what I have been. My identity is entirely wrapped up in being an artist, but being an actor. And I have such a loyalty to this craft that the second the phone rings and I've got an audition, I will drop everything else that I'm doing and spend, as much time as I can focused on that thing. I love acting so much, as Rich can tell you. But I think in some ways my commitment to acting and my commitment to that lifestyle has stood in the way of other things in my life. And you have this feeling as an actor, you're always a little bit tied to oh, the phone could ring, and then, your whole day could change, and you could have to just drop everything. And you're always ready to do that. And so there's always part of your brain that's with, there's always part of your brain that's ready to be taken out of wherever you're at, whatever else you're doing, and reorient to this new script, this new character, whatever it is. And I think that this was the first time in 20 years when I was 100% sure that the phone wasn't going to ring. It was just the first time that's ever been true. And I found a freedom in that. Not that I want to live the rest of my life that way. I'm very excited for the phone to ring again, but there was a real freedom in knowing that call's not going to come in. You're not going to get taken out of the creative thing that you get lost in or buried in. There is nothing else that is going to come along and demand all of your attention. So what do you want to do with your time?
Yeah.
And for me, it just sort of fell into this sweet spot with writing, where I realized I was already really falling in love with writing. And I think I was having a bit of your spouse and your mistress kind of relationship.
Right.
And so it was this opportunity to just be well, what if I'm just a full-time writer? What if that's what I do? And I stop apologizing for it. And so I let myself just go as a writer. And I've written every single day of this pandemic, and it has saved me, and I've written about the feelings I've been having. I've written stories about isolation, and I've written stories about connectivity and identity as it's changing. And I have just found writing to be medicine in this time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think, people should take that to heart, pen and paper or in front of your computer. Write down your feelings, your thoughts if you're in the film or television industry, and want to write, do it. Get your thoughts down on paper to begin with. And, let me ask you this. Speaking of COVID, things are starting to open back up, for productions. What do you see happening? What do you think what do you think the direction is we're going in as an industry, and opening it up?
I'm in Vancouver right now prepping a job, so things are full steam ahead up here. It's obviously not as bad as it is in the States, but there's still a lot of protocols. I've been wearing a mask, for 10, 12 hours a day, every day. And everybody's going through the testing and all this stuff. And it's different. It's different. And everything just takes more time. Right. And so I think the scary thing is especially for the smaller, I don't know if necessarily for the independent budgets that find the independent financing, like maybe they'll skate by a little bit, but it's those mid-level budgets that I think are going to be in a little bit of trouble, because the 20% extra in your budget to deal with PPE and all that stuff, it's where does it come from?
Yeah, and Annika, I mean, as an actor, have you been going in for auditions, or have you filmed anything since March?
No. And I think that, at least as of right now, everything's virtual. So your auditions are virtual. Your meetings are virtual. Yeah, I mean, again, talk about this kind of this sort of freedom from something. I mean, obviously Rich and I try to stay in the same country as often as possible, and right now we're not able to be. And he had to quarantine for 2 weeks when he went up to Vancouver, and so there's lots of lifestyle shifts that are happening. But some of this all going virtual thing again, and I realize I'm a glass half, full person, and that can be kind of grating. So I apologize, but I think there's a real gift in this as well, which is, we've been stuck in. I mean, I love New York and I love LA, but I've been stuck in one of those two places my entire career, and I'm with my family right now because I can work virtually, and that's a gift. Like there is work happening. Things are starting back up, but the things that you always feel like you need to be in town for, that's not necessarily true right now. So again, I think that we've both found some freedom in that, and yeah, obviously we're all anxious and excited for work to start again. And Rich probably knows more about the way things are actually looking right now than I do, because he's in pre-production on a project. So he can talk more about the logistics, but
I think there's going to be a lot more opportunity for regional based people, right? Because a lot of times they're not going to want to fly people in from LA to New York, because then you're in New York and it's like, well, you came from LA. It's like, well, do you need to quarantine? It's like, well, why don't we just hire out of New York? So or hire out of Albuquerque, or you know what I mean? So I think it's going to help regionally for actors and other talent. I think in a weird way, right? Because it's just going to be the safest thing to do in some ways.
Yeah, I think the casting directors are really turning into, when it comes to, feature casting and background casting, they're turning into like these go-to people in the different regions for, somebody coming to New Mexico to film from LA. And, it's a really important aspect, especially looking at producing and directing, to have that strong relationship and trust with casting directors in those regions.
Mm-hmm.
What question did it just slipped my mind. During this pandemic, for each of you, what's the one memorable thing with writing or a piece of work that you produced that, you're just thinking to yourself, God, I can't wait for this to get out into the world after the pandemic? Is it a piece that you wrote? Anything you can share with us, in terms of, your writing, Rich, your directing, any project that you were working on during the pandemic that, you're really proud of?
There is a project I'm really proud of that we're working on, and hopefully we'll pitch it top of next year. I can't really talk too much about it, but it's the thing that just kept me going. But I think more than that, we're really excited about getting Killing Eleanor out into the world. This is, in a weird way, the shutdown is kind of like we're into this post process and weaving into getting it out into the world. And so the shutdown has kind of given us a lot of time to like really focus our plan.
Yeah. And, I mean, Annika, what about you?
Well, I have a project that I'm working on with Sony, which I'm very excited about. And I will say I would never have written it if there wasn't a global pandemic. I mean, being in quarantine led to a conversation that, I wrote this thing. It kind of flew out of me, the first draft of it. And again, I think it was being on lockdown that made that possible. So I know that this particular manifestation of this one singular dream of mine, it wouldn't be happening this way without the quarantine. So I'll never be able to separate it from this experience.
Yeah.
And so that's very exciting. And we have a project that we're working on called The Tipping Point that I've been very, very excited about for a couple years now. And it's an epic romance that takes place against the backdrop of climate change. And it has just so I found myself really eager to move that project forward and tell that story, because I think, I do believe that stories are the most effective way to affect change. I think it's how we reach people's hearts, and things stop being theoretical and we start feeling them in a more visceral way when we can tell a really effective story. And I hope I've done that with this script, and I know Rich is going to make it look just stunning. And so I'm probably more enthusiastic about telling that story right now than I thought I could be, and I was excited about it before. So
Yeah. Yeah. Now, as you know, in the past at AFMX, we've had women in film and television panels that you've sat on, and we really focus on a lot of women projects, and love to showcase, diversity in our programming. Who are some of the women, and I don't know that we've ever talked about this before, but who are some women writers maybe, or, just women in the industry that you said, wow, that person really inspires me?
Oh my God.
Not necessarily mentors, but, who's inspired you?
No, they're endless. They're endless. I could go on about this for hours, but
Top 50.
I'll give you an example of somebody like this, like Jane Kasmerick, who's an actress that I have just admired and loved forever. She's such a genius, and you know it when you watch her work. I've seen her on stage, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I'd always really admired her. I'd always wanted to meet her. I'd always just wanted to meet her to say how much she inspires me. I was compared to her one time by Donald Margulies, and I was like, you just made my life. I just adore her and her talent.
Well, it's great that you were able to have her in Killing Eleanor, and
I ended up doing a play with her. And I have a way of trapping actors that I want to work with in dressing rooms and forcing them to read scripts. And so that's what I did with her. And she is that generous that she read the script and said, yeah, totally, I'll do this movie. And we didn't have a big budget, and we couldn't fly people first class, and she got on a plane for Chicago and did work that I'll never be able to adequately thank her for, and has remained so steadfastly supportive of the project and of us as filmmakers, and has become a really dear friend. And so I think people like that, for me, meeting your heroes turning out to be not just as talented as you already know they are, but turning out to be generous, and providing the opportunity for mentorship and then turning into friends. That is one of the most rewarding processes I think you can go through in this business. And it doesn't happen all the time, but when it happens, it sort of keeps you going. And
well, yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because, you wrote a script from the beginning of to the end of it. And somebody who you admire and inspired you in the industry is reading your words. Mm-hmm. Reading your words in front of the camera, and it's going to be on the big screen. And I think that's something really special. Rich, you get to shoot it as a director and, cinematographer, and do the editing to make it look phenomenal. And, it's just a really beautiful thing. Let's, thanks for sharing, the past 7 months. We really didn't get into a real deep dive, but I think some really great things that you shared. Let's dive into Killing Eleanor. I mean, I remember, Annika, you came to me, God, I don't know how many months ago, or maybe it was 2 years ago, saying, "Oh, I'm writing this incredible script."
Did I
And
say that? I love that I said that if I did. That's amazing.
I mean, yeah, I'm writing this incredible script. And, and not to take anything away from writers, but everybody says, "Oh, I have this incredible script," and, then you said, "Oh, we're going to be shooting this script that I wrote." And, you didn't keep it a secret by any means. You said, "Oh yeah, this person is involved. That person's involved. And, Rich is going to be shooting it and editing." And, then you contacted me when you started shopping it with the festival circuits.
Yeah.
And you said, "We haven't really shared it with anyone outside of the cast and production crew. We want you to see it." And I was honored, first and foremost, and I was blown away by the product that I saw. And I really wish we could have shown it, here at AFMX. But Killing Eleanor, the cool thing, and I'm just going to read this because it was on IMDb, the log line.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this will kind of tell you a lot about the film. Well, it won't tell you a lot about it, but it gives you an idea of how many really cool ideas are in this script. So the log line: a terminally ill old lady who wants to die on her own terms convinces a self-destructive addict to help kill her in exchange for clean urine.
Yep.
How do you like that?
Well, and I'll back up further. So the script, actually, this idea for the script, I'd had it for a while. It initially sort of sparked for me when I was really young. I was like, I don't know, 21 or something, and I was subletting an apartment in New York, and this really wild, older woman who was showing me around her apartment, and I was going to sublet from her for like 6 months because she was a snowbird, and she was going to Florida for the winter, and she had a handwritten lease on a yellow legal pad, and she was like showing me around the apartment, telling me about all these little things. And she said, "All right, so you're going to sign right here, unless you want to agree to help kill me when I'm ready to go, in which case you can have the place for free."
So that started the idea of it.
Yeah, because I laughed, and then she laughed, and then I signed it, and then it was over. But like, I never stopped thinking about her, and like, even if it was just a joke, the fact that it was in her head at all, the idea that you might ask a complete stranger to help you die, was such an interesting idea to me, and it never left me. And so I think it was like 2008, I was doing a play with Jenny O'Hara, another person who I would call, a mentor and somebody I've looked up to forever. And she's
amazing.
I think one of the greatest actors we've ever had. And I think that's easy to say. And anyway, I was doing a play with her, and I trapped her in the dressing room because this is my move. And I said, "Listen, I have an idea for a movie, and I think that we should make it together." And she said, "Okay, sure. Like, write the script and we'll make the movie." And then it took me like 10 years to write it. And so it took me 10 years because I, hadn't met Rich yet. And then I met Rich, and I said, "Well, I have this idea, and I have a couple things written, and I don't know." And he said, "That's a fantastic idea. Why aren't you writing it?" And I was like, "I don't know."
So Rich, let me ask Rich. So when she told you about this story and you said to her, "Hey, why aren't you writing this?" Did you know in your mind as a director, like, I see myself shooting this already and making this film?
I think at that point we had made a short film together already that we had a great time doing that. And the dream is to make your own stuff, right? That's the dream.
Right.
And so we did it on the short term, the short version of that. And we had a great time doing it. And we said, I don't know, this is a great idea. Like, if you write it, like, I don't know how to find money, but maybe we can find money. And like, I know we can shoot it,
Right.
Also, I'm going to pause for a second. Also, I wanted to repaint a wall in our house that I had already repainted like 5 times because I couldn't get the color right.
When you say you wanted to repaint, I repainted that wall 5 times.
Okay, debatable. But I wanted to repaint it again, and it was going to have to be a group effort. And Rich said to me, "If you finish the script, we can repaint the wall." And so that was the final. That was the
if you paint
final.
the script, I'll paint the wall.
Yeah. I didn't think she was going to do it. I was like, we're good. We don't have to paint, but man.
So obviously Rich painted the wall.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I did.
Oh, yeah.
Gladly.
So what happened after the script was complete? Who'd you give it to?
I think
Well,
we started catching talent, right? Or what did we do?
Right, I did. Yeah, I went back to Jenny and I was like, "Remember when you said you'd make my movie?" And she
Yeah,
was like,
remember in the dressing room?
yeah. And I was like, "Well, I wrote it and let's make it." And she very quickly said, "Yeah, sure. If you can figure this out, I would love to make it." And then I guess this is a good place to start, actually. I had been an actor for 20 years. I knew a lot of actors. I knew that one of the advantages I had was I could attach talent. And so, I reached out to friends. I mean, Jane Kasmerick was probably the second person that signed on. Thomas Sadowski signed on.
Great actor.
And then he's an amazing actor, and he was on a TV show at the time with Betsy Brandt, so he gave her the script and she signed on. Who else?
And
Oh,
everybody
Cameron
here
Manheim.
in New Mexico is familiar with Betsy Brandt, Marie on Breaking Bad. So one of our darlings from not from Albuquerque, but yeah, she's a New Mexican now.
Right. And
Sorry.
and I had met Cameron Manheim in New Mexico filming Waco, and pretty sure I trapped her in a dressing room. Her trailer, and she signed on. So it was I realized that was the advantage I had, was that I could call my friends.
She was the casting director, Ivan. She was our casting director.
Yeah. Great job.
Yeah, so that was, so we had a cast, and then I said, okay, so what next? And Rich was like, next we probably need a schedule and a budget and a lookbook, and I was like, great, I'm doing all of it. So I pretty
As
much
a producer
sat down.
would do, right?
I mean, I guess this is the point, right? It was like, if we could wait and see if somebody else does it, but they probably won't. So I'm sure I did it all badly, but I did sort of try to teach myself how to put together a basic budget and a basic schedule. Rich helped with the schedule, and I taught myself, very easy to use, Wix, that like website developer. I taught myself how to do that. So I built a website and I built us a lookbook, and I just got everything together. And so by the time we went out and tried to actually find money, which is, if I was listening to this, it would be the thing I would want to know, is how'd you find money?
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, by the time we went out to look for money, we had everything together. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really important thing to say, is that, opportunity does come along with indies. Like, there are those moments where the right person reads your script and potentially can finance it. And I think the important thing when you're doing something on your own is that when that moment comes, you need to have all your ducks in a row.
Yeah, and you know what? Let me add to that. And I'm sure Rich has a few words on this as well. I'm approached all the time by filmmakers to say, I have this incredible script. Can you give it to somebody? Can you give it to Giancarlo Esposito? Can you give it to this person, that person? My very first question is, where are you on the business end of things with your presentation, budget, fundraising? I mean, that's my first question. And literally, I'd say 90% of the time, people don't have any of that started. They just have a script. And, so continue. I'm sorry. I agree with you 100%. It is so important to have all of that set up.
But I think some of that, I mean, it's great. Annika is an actor and had all these actors. I mean, it is about using the tools you have, right? And figuring out a way, like, all of this is problem solving, right? The entire business is problem solving, whether I'm blocking a scene or Annika's working on a scene as an actor, or we're producing something, or we're coming up with a budget. It's all problem solving. So if you can be nimble and think outside the box, and you'll find a way to figure it out, right? You might not know those actors, but who knows those actors that I can get to those actors, Yeah,
and I mean, everybody's trying to get to somebody, whether it's an actor or the financing, to make a movie. And, you can go the way independent route where it's just, the collective friends making a film, and there's some amazing things that have been produced over the years. If you want to get it out there on the market, though, there's the business side of things that you should know, and getting it in front of the right people. Now, it's the question is, I guess, for Annika, you had relationships with a lot of actors, and you were you're an actor in the business on television and feature films. How hard was it, even with all of that behind you, to go out and raise funds?
So, by the time we were going out and actually looking to raise the money, like I said, we had all this stuff together. That took a long time. I would say it was about 6 months of just putting this package together, getting letters of intent from every actor, asking people if I could look at budgets so that I could try to teach myself, budgeting software and that kind of stuff. Once we looked for the financing, it happened really fast. And I know that this is a bit of a dream story. I'm going to tell it. I realize that this is a dream scenario. I just want to emphasize that this stuff does happen. And the key to taking advantage of these opportunities when they happen is to just be so ready when the opportunity comes that the person doesn't pass it over, right? Or
Great advice. And let me throw this note in there. So many independent filmmakers don't think that it can happen like this, but it can.
It can, and there are people out there. This is what they do. They finance independent film. This is a real business model. It isn't just like you have to do. I mean, you can do GoFundMe for sure, but you don't have to. There are people out there who do this for a living, and have models and can make sense out of the numbers. It's also your job to help them make sense out of the numbers, right? Like our website had a whole page about movies at this budget with this type of cast and their sort of return on investment, and takes a long time to dig into research and figure out what things were actually made for and sold for and all that stuff. But that time, that investment in that time, I count towards the time it took us to raise the money, because even though we weren't asking for the money yet, we were already doing the work to be ready to ask for the money.
Sure.
So all that said, I contacted, well, I guess first off, Rich, you contacted.
We did a deep dive to find like creative producers that might have access to money. We just opened our Rolodexes and tried to search every person we knew and then their 3 friends and tried to just find people. And we came up with a short list, and we struck out a lot. And again, then we found through a writer friend of mine, we were introduced to Richard Cahan, first and foremost, and he came on as a producer. And he had made a film called Lucky, which was Harry Dean Stanton's last movie.
Yep.
And he had a lot of experience with financing. He had a lot of experience with post-production and distribution. And we were like, okay, and he was great. And we all were like-minded, and we fell in love, and we just said, okay, let's just make this together. And so.
And he gave us a lot of confidence because he saw the movie. He saw the potential that the movie could get made.
Absolutely.
And then Richard, reached out to his contacts, and those, we struck out. I mean, we ultimately struck out, right? And then we were hammering our heads against the wall. And I think, Annika, you remembered the movie you had just done, and you remembered a producer.
Yeah, I had just done a film. There's another lesson in this, which is interesting, but I had just done a film in Chicago called The World Without You. And there was a producer who had come on to that movie towards the end. She wasn't there the whole time. I would say she was there for maybe 6 or 7 days or something towards the end of the film. And she was wonderful. She was clearly incredibly competent. She was very young, but a very experienced indie producer in Chicago. And I really liked her. And we hit it off and spent, a couple hours, talking over a bunch of days. And then that was it. But I had her email, and I knew that she'd raised money for movies. And her
name is Angie Gaffney.
Angie Gaffney. So I wrote to Angie and I said, I'm just looking for advice. This is what I have. I have all this stuff put together. And I don't know who I'm supposed to reach out to now. And I'm wondering if you could give me some advice. I'm really just looking to have a conversation to, pick your brain. And she said, well, let me read the script. So I sent it to her, sent her all of our stuff. And she said, I actually think I know executive producers that might be interested in this. Can I take it to them? And I said, yes, of course, please. And so she took it to this company called the Chicago Media Angels. They're an investment group out of Chicago. It's a group of investors that meet quarterly to hear pitches on primarily film, but some other artistic projects as well. And they can decide as a pool how much they want to invest per individual. They create an LLC and make those projects. So they very quickly turned around and said, we love this script. We want you guys to come out to Chicago and pitch. So Rich and Richard and myself and Angie put together like, you know, a tight 10-minute presentation that we worked on. And, you know, we created a PowerPoint, and we created as much as we could possibly create to say, this is the movie we're making. This is our vision. This is why you should invest in it. And we flew out to Chicago. We put up that presentation, and within 2 weeks, that company came back and said they wanted to make the film. And so it is a dream story. They are dream investors. They turned out to be as wonderful as you could possibly hope for, in that their mission is to support and empower artists. They do not see themselves as artists. They see themselves as a tool for artists and partners for artists. We love them. We are working with them again on our next film. And yeah, it's just, I do want to say people like that exist. I think they're rare, but they do exist. And I hesitate to use the word luck. I know that women are too quick to use it, but I do think we got incredibly lucky.
Okay, so you got incredibly lucky. In the industry, people, when they say, oh my God, I got finance for my film, oh, we got so lucky. You know, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, as we all know, and you took the right steps. So I think advice to people that are watching, you know, it's like you have to put the work in and have all of the things set up ahead of time to present to people and pitch it and get to the right people, and don't be afraid to ask. And also don't be afraid to hear no. You know, be persistent, and, you know, you have to persevere, like Rich was saying earlier in the conversation. So let's ask this: the excitement, you're financed, I'm sure a lot of paperwork to sign and the like. And hey, you know what? When are we going to shoot this movie? It's such an exciting time. When are you going to shoot it? What is the next step? What happened?
So we got our financing in June, or that's when we pitched, I guess, was in June. We probably got our financing in July, and we were shooting in October. So it moved very, very fast. You know, Rich is, like he said, he started in music videos, and he is, you know, he directs and he edits and he writes, and he is capable of doing all the jobs if he has to. And so we went into this project, and I think Rich very smartly went into this project saying, let's hope that on the budget that we have, which was not nothing, but it was not significant, that, you know, let's hope that we can hire people who do these jobs perfectly, but let's be prepared in case they don't. And so you know, on our own dime, we went out to Chicago early. We put ourselves up, and we started doing a whole bunch of legwork on our own. You know, the movie involves a road trip. We took that road trip, so we knew exactly what it was that we were trying to capture. We did some initial location scouting on our own. You know, a budget has limitations, and we just were unwilling to compromise more than we needed to. So we went out of our way to do like pre-prep work, like in Chicago on the ground, and familiarize ourselves with Chicago, which we didn't know well enough at the time.
At the same time, we were crewing up. So I called in some deep favors. You know, one of my dear friends, Jennifer Wilkinson, is a like grade A, awesome first AD in the television world. And like, she's, you know, 200 episodes of television. She's a director in her own right. I was like, oh, she's going to be too busy. She's never going to be able to do it. And I asked her, and she's like, where do you want me? When do you want me? This would be awesome.
I love it. I love it. You know, everybody should keep in mind also, you know, you build relationships with people on other sets or throughout your career. You know, do not be afraid to reach out to people if you built that relationship with them on a project, and say, hey, you know, I'm doing this. You know, what are your thoughts about joining the team?
Yeah, so it was her. She came out, and then our DP Jessica Young. Jessica, I went to film school with Jessica. I've known her for 25 years. I've shot dozens of projects with her, and it was a no-brainer. She comes from the world of documentaries, and she shot the Dave Grohl Sound City documentary, and the Dave Grohl HBO series, and hangs out of a helicopter, shoots motorcycles, but also is an incredibly she's just a beautiful filmmaker. Like she captures things in a way that no one else would see it, and it's breathtaking when you watch her stuff. So I said, Jess, this is the moment. Remember that film school time I said we're gonna make a movie together? Like this is it. So she came out, and then we crewed up in Chicago for a lot of our people, and gave a lot of first timers opportunities, I think.
Yeah, we give a lot of people opportunities to take a step up, I think, in the department that they were already in, just to take that next step, and that felt wonderful. And I think it's one of the things that indie films can do really well, is give people that chance. And we ended up with an extraordinary crew. Yeah. It was like a family, and they were, I think. I will give us the credit of, I think we invited everybody to the table creatively, and we tried to empower everybody as much as possible. I have a theory about anybody that's making movies, that the electrician that's on a movie set, they want to make movies. There's a reason why they're doing, they're on a movie set. They could probably make a lot more money, being an electrician in some other some other industry. And I think it's important to remember that everybody that's on a movie set wants to make movies, and they are storytellers. And so I think, we worked really hard to make sure that we had created an environment that was cultivating creativity from every single angle. And then we ended up, attracting like-minded people, and we brought together a group of incredibly talented, incredibly empathetic, warm, caring, generous people. And we would not have the movie we have without every single one of them.
100%. So you built up the crew, and it seems like you built an incredible crew. How many days did it take to shoot? And
for 17 days.
17 days for principal photography.
Plus 2 days of pickups and reshoots, or no, just not pickups. Like second unit, we did the road trip for 2 days, with a handful of people.
Yeah.
And then how many days to edit, Rich? Because I know you're really efficient with what you do, and you're very technical in everything you do. I've heard stories of you building furniture, and it's spec'd out every step of the way. So, let's talk about 17, 19 days of principal photography and pickup shots. How many days did it take you to edit this feature?
Well, we had our DIT was also kind of my assistant editor on the side. So as we were shooting, he was kind of rolling it into, I cut this thing on Final Cut 7, which is an outdated editing program, but it's what I had on my laptop. And I was like, we don't have the money to buy new software. I'm just going to cut it on Final Cut 7. I love Final Cut 7. It's going to be great.
Sure.
And so I made our DIT downgrade his prep to go to Final Cut 7 so he could prep the whole thing. He's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so he had it all kind of dialed by the time we wrapped. And then what I didn't want, I was a little reluctant to edit, just because I love the creative part of it. I don't like the technical side of it, and logging and exporting, and I just don't like any of that stuff. So I was a little reluctant, but I said, listen, if we can have somebody in place that dials it all so I can just plug and play and start editing as soon as it's done, then I'm in. So we did that, and he was great. And so I want to say, we road trip to Chicago. So we road trip back. By the time we got back, it was November. And so I think I was cutting for a month. And then we finally took our honeymoon several years later. So we decided to do that over the holidays. And then I think I cut for another 2 months. Was it beginning of February or the end of February when we finished the first cut? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know. Time is a blur. I don't know.
I think it might have been the end of February when I finished the first cut, which, it's not an assembly. Literally, I think it was getting my director's cut was about 3 months all in.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Really good.
And then it went on for a while. And then there was lots of refining from there. I mean, there was lots of time, and we weren't too crunched, because we didn't have the set. We weren't. I don't know. I feel, Rich, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we felt like we could keep working until we were happy.
Yeah, I think we were loosely saying like end of the summer we wanted to be kind of done. So we back timed it from that and tried to figure out where we would need to do all the finishing steps.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like you had pressure from the other producers either.
No, everybody it was all very much like, make the best version of the movie. Everybody had that thought. I recut the opening. Like, I think there was like 16 different cuts of the opening.
Wow.
Got it right. So, it was a lot of trial and error. And then, I think my rough cut, so my assembly was like 2.5 hours, 3 hours long. I think my assembly was 3 hours.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh God, how am I going to cut this down? And then I think my director's cut was like 2 hours and 6 minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, Annika and Angie and Annika was helping me all throughout. Like, it's really interesting having your lead actor in the editing suite with you as you're cutting.
I was going to ask about that. That was my next question.
Our editing
The
suite.
lead actor, the writer, and you're a co-producer.
Yeah, our home office is the editing.
Yeah, like we're just using the term editing suite very loosely. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment at the time, and one of the bedrooms was our office / editing. Get away the other one.
So but it was great to have Annika there because I was always like, watch the scene, watch that scene, and it was easy. It was great to kind of refine it with her eyes because you watch something for so long, especially if you've directed it and you've cut it, you lose a little perspective at some point. So it was nice to have some outside voices, and then we got Angie and Richard involved, and we kept whittling away until we felt like we were ready to show our EPs, and then that was the process.
So, you're married to the guy, he's directing, he's editing, he's getting this final cut together. Was there anything that, he did to upset the writer and, or the star of the movie?
No, it's interesting. I would, if I had a funny story to tell, I would, but I have to say, I now at this point feel like if I could give a young filmmaker, really any kind of storyteller advice at the very beginning, I would say take an editing class, which is not something I would have ever said before making this movie. But what I understand now, and I understand it as an actor when I walk onto a set now, I understand it as a writer when I sit down to write something. In the end, the final bit of writing that happens and the final performance that is birthed, all of that comes from the edit. And the edit is the way the story is delivered to the audience. And I come from theater. I come from a world as an actor where, eventually it is all up to you, the communication of the story. So it took me a long time, transitioning into film and television, and then eventually into writing and producing in that same medium, to really appreciate what the editor does. And if I could go back now, I would have taken an editing class earlier, because it is so informative, and it's also very, very freeing to remember what can happen in the edit. And so I think as the writer, actually what I found was this level of this release of any kind of preciousness that I had left over having to get the script exactly right. And of course you want the script to be the best, most authentic version of what it is that you set out to write, but to remember that it is not in the end exactly what the movie is going to, it's a blueprint to shoot, but the movie that's going to be born is going to be born in the edit. And so I actually felt like there was a dialogue between me as the writer and Rich as the editor, figuring out the language that would become the film, that was really beautiful, and I thought was a process that taught me a lot about writing, kind of in a reverse engineer way, taught me a lot about writing.
Speaking of writing, there's a question from an audience member that I think it fits right in this point, and then we'll continue with kind of the next steps of what happened with killing Eleanor. Rayanne Johnson says, hi, Annika. You mentioned that Rich suggested books and podcasts to help you with discipline pertaining to writing. Any you care to recommend?
Well, it's funny. Hi, Ram. She's wonderful. I have known her for years. We met through Foster's fandom, and she is an amazing, amazing person. It's funny because this is going to sound so rudimentary, but uh, I think the first thing you gave me was Save the Cat, and that's going to sound really rudimentary, but I hadn't ever read that. I hadn't ever read anything that broke down even the hero's journey. I mean, they were all at that point as a writer. The place that I was in then was everything I had absorbed by osmosis and by just the reading and workshopping of hundreds of scripts. And so I knew a lot instinctually. I could feel my way through a story and I could feel my way through a script, but I had never done the very basic work of understanding beats and structures and acts. And so I have to say that I found that book incredibly helpful. And I think part of the reason it was really helpful for me was that I didn't think it was teaching me how to be a writer. I thought it was teaching me discipline. And I still think about that. I still think about that book. Like I still go back to elements of it, as sort of simplistic as the ideas are, because I think that my instincts are to write always from character first. And that book sort of helped reorient me as a storyteller that needs to understand how plot drives, how you drive a story,
Of
and to
course.
not get lost. My habit was to always get lost in the second act and never actually make it to the third act at all. I had a whole lot of experiences like that as a writer. So that was the book that I think helped me sort of get past that. The other thing that was an extraordinary, and I kind of credit it as like my version of film school, is a podcast called Script Notes, that you can get for free if you just want to get it once a week. But I am a premium subscriber, which is like $5 a month, and then you get their entire backlog of every single episode they've ever recorded. It's Craig Mazin and John August, so two of the best screenwriters that have ever lived, and they do this incredibly generous service of a weekly podcast about writing, about the craft of writing, about their process, advice, but also breaking down just the smallest pieces. Like if you're stuck on something, you could go through their archives and be like, I want to look for this very specific, problem that I'm having with an antagonist's perspective or something. You could dig through, you could find a podcast of theirs that's going to be addressing that exact thing. So I have used, as Rich knows, I've listened to hundreds of those episodes and have found them to be, they're like my spirit animals. So I highly recommend that.
Yeah, thanks for that. Script Notes I've listened to, and yeah, I'm not a writer, but it's helped me, in the process of producing things as well. So
Yeah.
I'm going to answer some other audience. I'm going to ask other audience questions, but let's get back to Killing Eleanor, because this is scheduled for like an hour and a half. And there are some questions from the audience. We're going to go over the hour and a half if you have time.
I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about, so the final edit's done. Rich, you're a pro in delivering things to people to see when you have that final cut. You got it to the other producers, I'm assuming, and said, hey, here's the product. What was the reaction? What was the plan for marketing this film and getting it out there to the world? Because it's not in distribution yet, but, COVID had a big part of, interrupting that process. But let's talk about your plans and the marketing effort to get it out to the world.
Yeah, I think when I finally delivered, and when we finally the big part of the delivery process really was looking at films like ours and looking at the length of them. It sounds like a weird thing, but we knew we wanted to get it to a certain length, because anything past that felt like it was going to be a harder sell. And everything we were reading and everything we were being told, it was like, get it to anywhere between 90 and I don't know what it was. We ended up, I think, at 106 minutes or something like that, which worked out just great. And it seemed to be the sweet spot, but it took a long time to get there. It took a long time to kind of figure out.
I'm just going to insert one thing in here, which is that test screenings is an important part of that.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the money in our budget to do like real professional grade test screenings. And so my parents did them for us. We actually did them in several places, but my parents, who I also should mention, were on set with us the entire time as our craft service. And Ivan, you know them very well because they've come to the festival.
I've been to the house up in Washington, and
Yeah.
they're amazing hosts and incredible at feeding people.
They are so good at feeding people, and they were so excellent.
They were the favorite people on set. Everybody loved them.
Yeah, I mean, right. We get no credit for keeping anybody happy. It was my parents, and anyway, they ended up doing test screenings with groups of people in their living room. Angie did test screenings, and our executive producers did test screenings, but figuring out a way to get audiences to watch this movie that had no connection to it, had never read the script, hopefully didn't know any of us that well, which was a little tricky with my parents, but trying to strip away the personal and get real genuine reaction, it's such an important part, and it's something you don't budget for. And I will say I think it's a very important part, and on the next film we will budget for it, because getting into time.
What you're looking for too is a consensus, right? Like, you don't want the one-off note that's like, oh, I should change that thing, but only one person said it. You want the thing that like 7 or 8 people said this exact same thing. Like, clearly that's a problem.
I mean, look, the New Mexico community loves filmmaking. If you need a test screening here in Albuquerque for the next film, if you have my number, let me know.
All right.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, let's talk about festivals. I mean, you submitted to Sundance and, I think Tribeca and Toronto and all the majors, and,
So we started. So we finished our movie, and obviously you want to premiere at the best festival you can. We have some news coming up. We can't announce it yet, but we have got some very exciting news coming in about a week. So I wish I could tell everybody today, but we do have some great news. And I think it's important to be patient, but not unrealistic. That's the advice that I would give to filmmakers. And sometimes it's hard to know the balance of those two things. And I think for us, it's been a pretty organic process. Like, we believe in the film we made, and we knew it was a matter of time before we found the right place to share our feeling about it. But I think that process is tricky. Like, you don't want to let too much time go by waiting for something that turns out to be unrealistic, and at the same time you don't want to sell your film short by dumping it out into the world because you're just so excited to share it with people and not give it the life it deserves after laboring over it for so long. So in the meantime, as we've been waiting for the thing that we'll be able to share next week, in the meantime, we did things like we got a trailer made for the film. We went and we actually
Hold another favor. Got it's like went back to the well and like asked for a favor.
I mean, that's what independent filmmaking is. When you are taking steps and getting it out to the world, it's like, okay, we have to raise more money, or we need to call in a favor, or we need to bring people together that are passionate about this project and get this done.
This amazing company jumped on board called Buddha Jones. They're probably the best trailer house in LA. And probably, I mean, they're one of the best in the country. And the owners there, they really responded to the film, and they wanted to help. So it was really nice. You show somebody a product, and they see it, and they understand it, and they saw what you saw in it, and they validate it. You know what I mean? And they just want to be a part of it. And so that was really nice.
So just sort of similar to talking about like being prepared for the process of asking for money. I feel like this last chapter of this for us has been about getting prepared for the distribution, path, and getting a trailer made was part of that. Getting a poster designed, which we're at the tail end of, has been part of that, and that's gone through a whole bunch of different steps. Thinking about how we want to market this film. Selecting your stills, we have a publicist on board now, all the things that, figuring out what kind of producers rep or sales rep you want to work with, all those steps, that is a big chunk of time. And I one of the things that I feel like I've learned in this is that, you know, burnout with indies is real. You hit these points when you think, oh my God, I just can't think about this movie anymore. And I think when we got to the end of the edit, we were sort of there. And we took a little bit of a break, and then we came back to it with this like renewed energy, and have been preparing and preparing, and now I'm watching that preparation, that momentum pay off, and it feels like um, I do think you need to give yourself some space from it, because it is an exhaustive process and it is never ending, and every time you think you've hit an end point, where you really are is the beginning of the next leg of the journey.
It's
And
a
so
triathlon. It's a
yeah.
triathlon. It really is. And I'm glad you brought that up because, everybody is so satisfied when they get a final cut. And then it's like, okay, the next part of the journey begins. We need to get it out there to the world. And it takes a lot of different steps to do it. And, being an executive director of a film festival, I've had the discussions with a lot of people over the past 8 years of, oh, well, we applied for this festival, and if I go to AFMX, they won't premiere it there, but I haven't been accepted yet. But yeah, we know Sundance has a much bigger viewership than AFMX. We support filmmakers, whether they are in our program or thinking about our program compared to another festival. We want the best for every film and filmmaker that is interested in our festival. I mean, that's the way the industry should be. So I know that there's an announcement next week. I can't wait to hear it. About where we're Killing Eleanor is going to be screening, and I'm really excited for you, whether it's playing here at AFMX or somewhere else, as long as it is playing in a great, honoring environment that is going to showcase how wonderful this film is.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah, no,
wanted to ask a quick question. So, from Kira Seipler, simply, how do you go about getting funding, whether it's crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, etc., so you can get your business ducks in a row? So, was there a certain budget you had to raise right up front for the business stuff, or did you just dive in and say, "I'm putting it on a credit card"? And
So, okay, so this is actually this is a really good question, because I remember feeling like I needed someone to talk me through this, and I'm not going to pretend for 1 second that the way we did it is the right way to do it. But the way we did it was that we just did it ourselves. So there would be a world where we would have said, you know what, we need a line producer to come on to make us a budget, and that's going to cost us, $500 at probably the very, very low end. And are we going to pay for that ourselves? Or are we going to go out and try to raise that money? How do we do it? Instead of doing that, we just made our own budget. I am not saying that the way we did it is the right way, but we were determined not to go broke in the trying to get your movie made phase. And so we took on a lot of that labor that we might have outsourced.
But I would just add to that and say, your Google's your friend, right? Like, you don't know how to make a budget? There's a YouTube video about that. You know what I mean? You don't need the software that makes budgets. You have numbers on your Mac computer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are ways to do this yourself, and you just have to know what you're looking for, but then you can Google that and like, what am I supposed to look for? It's all out there.
And you have to be willing to put the time in. I mean, it is exhaustive, and there's no question somebody else can do it faster and somebody else could do it better. But the question is, what do you need it for in this moment? And for us, the answer to that was, we just need to be able to prove to somebody that we can make this movie for the amount of money that we're asking for, and that amount of money we can prove movies like ours have made a profit on that kind of budget. That's all we needed to do. And so I think the really important thing is to like be very clear about the objective that you're using these things for. Eventually, once we had our budget, the schedule and the budget once we got our financing, the schedule and the budget were completely redone by people who do it for a living. But that was then part of the budget of the film. And so I think the question I remember that early phase being like, oh my God, when do we start? When do we make an LLC? When do we open a bank account? I think the most important thing is to just get as organized as possible and know what you're going to be using this material for. And so for us, the objective was clear, and we just took care of things, with that objective in mind.
Thanks for that. And so the next question, I think you may have answered some of it. It's what were the most helpful tools you found for establishing your budget? Google and YouTube.
I mean, look, I come from music videos, so like I've definitely delved into my fair share of budgets. That's a lot of times, you're producing those yourself sometimes. So I've seen my fair share of budgets. I know, instinctively what certain things cost, like what's, how much does a grip get a day rate, all that kind of stuff. But, if you have friends in the industry, or if you have, you can search on your computer, or there's 1,000 ways to get the answers to what you're looking for. You might not be right, but at least it's a starting point. And then, you evolve and you adapt and you show it to people, and then you learn something and you change it. And,
The other thing is that, like, Rich's DGA, so I called the DGA and asked them about their indie film contracts, and I called SAG and got a rep and talked to them about their indie film contracts, and I think people are sometimes afraid to pick up the phone, especially in the world we live in, where everything is on text and everything is on email, and pick up the phone and call. And I think sometimes the answers come that much faster. The other part of that is that I think it's really important to, as you're putting together these things, don't be afraid to call your friends and say, hey, I know you made a film. I think it's probably around the budget that we're asking for. You can totally tell me no, but if you're comfortable, could I look at your budget? Because I would love to educate myself. And I had 2 or 3 friends send me, and I had friends tell me no, but I had 2 or 3 friends send me budgets from their indies, and it was incredible. In, like Rich is saying, just having a starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, thanks for saying that, because I know a lot of people are afraid to ask when it comes to dollar amounts, whether it's for budgeting or the like, because everybody, especially feature films, they want a good budget, and they want people to. It's the self-confidence in what you're asking for monetarily from people to get a project done, and if you feel as if you're not there asking about the right numbers, and you don't feel confident you're going to put the right numbers into it, you may never get the project done.
Right.
Another question for Rich. Let's see, where'd it go? There it is. Hi, Rich. It's from Rayanne Johnson. You're an uber and multi-talented. Which aspect of business would you choose to work in if you could only pick one? Where do you have the best flow?
In this business, I think as a director, I think if I could just pick one thing, I would be directing.
Yep. Thanks for that. Annika, writing, directing, producing, acting?
Oh, that's so hard to say. I think if I had to choose one thing right now, I would choose writing. It's probably just where I'm at in my life and how much I'm enjoying not having to wait for permission from other people. I will say I do want to say about Rich saying directing, and I think this is an interesting thing to note about somebody who does a whole bunch of things, and one of them is directing, is that he uses all of his skills as a director. I think I watch Rich on set, and I'm watching him cut things in his head while he's directing, and it makes him an incredibly efficient director. The fact that he's a writer, the fact that he's married to an actor, I think helps. But I watch the way he works as a director on set, and I think you use all those other things as a director. So in a way, it kind of all folds into, under the umbrella of directing in a way.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to see some amazing directors, and talking to them either during production or after production. And it amazed me. They say, "Oh yeah, I started off doing crafty, or I started off, doing this or that." And it's amazing the experience people have built up on productions over the years, and where they land as a director, and they know all of the different departments like the back of their hand. And it's so important, even in the indie world. And I think that puts a lot of independent filmmakers, I'm not going to say a level above, but it gives them an opportunity to really perfect their craft as a director, knowing what they have to oversee on a set, and knowing those different departments, is a really key part of it. So,
back to problem solving, right? Like, especially with this limited budget, something's going to go to crap, right? At some point, and you're going to have to like figure it out. And if you are at least somewhat versed in a lot of these disciplines, you're going to be able to like, oh, our AC just went down. Like, I know how to pull focus. Like, let me try it, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Another question from Kira Seipler. Where can we follow your projects?
So we're going to be launching our social media handles this coming week with this announcement. So then it'll be really simple. It's Killing Eleanor on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, I believe. If you want to follow me on both Instagram and Twitter, it's my name with an underscore underneath it. So Annika_Marks. And Rich, you're public on Twitter, right? If somebody wants to follow you
Rich
there.
underscore Newey.
And then we'll be sharing, but we'll be launching our social media handles this coming week. So yes, please follow along there as we go on this journey.
So yeah, please do follow them. We're gonna ask one more question from the audience, and then I have a bunch of questions of my own. I mean, I've been asking questions about the whole process and about you and the like, but we're gonna do rapid fire questions that are a lot of fun. And we're going to see what you agree on and don't agree on as husband, wife, and professionals in the industry. It's not that bad. It's not about agreeing and disagreeing, but let's get to this last audience question. Annika, for someone that is not an actor and cannot trap other actors in their dressing room to read their script, what is the best way to approach talent about your script or project?
This is a very good question. I think there's two parts to it. One part is about what makes an actor want to do a project. I'm assuming that this person's talking about indie film. So what makes somebody who is really successful as an actor want to do a project where they're probably going to get paid less than they do normally? And I think the number one reason somebody says yes to something is because you're giving them an opportunity that they're not being given in their typical working life. So I would encourage you, as you're thinking about what actors you're trying to approach, to be thinking about something, to be thinking about going to an actor with an opportunity that actor is just not getting anywhere else. The other part of that is just logistically, like, how do you get to somebody? And there's all the obvious answers, like going through somebody's agent or manager or lawyer, which you can usually find contacts for on IMDb or IMDb Pro if you have a subscription to that. Those people are often standing in the way of getting to those actors. They do legally have to show them an offer. So I will tell you that if you go as far as sending an offer in, they are legally obligated to show them to their clients. I don't find that to be the most effective way of getting to talent for a small project. I think the most effective way is what Rich was saying before, which is even if you don't have the direct connection to that person, find somebody that you know who knows somebody and, get in through the back door. Because even for me, at where I'm at in my career, I'm much more likely to read something if it comes through a friend or somebody that I trust. And someone says, I don't know, this person is so passionate and was so determined to get this to you, I'm probably going to read it. And so I don't know. I think be creative and be perseverant and be a little bit relentless about it. And I would, and that isn't to say, I think go through every door, also go through the front doors, go to their agent, go to their manager, go to their lawyer, but also do everything you can to get to them in some kind of personal way. If you have any connection to them at all, the way that I get to actors that I don't know, and I've gotten to a lot of them, is I write a letter. I write the most personal, passionate letter I can possibly write about why I want to work with them on this project. And I try to find somebody that we know in common. And I try to get them that letter. And if I can get them that letter through 3 different people, then I get them that letter through. Years ago, I did a movie called Grace that I had signed on to star in, and there was like the secondary or the other lead in the film. They hadn't cast yet, and they cast me first, which I thought at the time was amazing, but also a little bit of a mistake because who was going to want to sign on at that point to star opposite me? I just felt like I could be the reason someone would say no to it because no one knew my work at that point. I think all I'd done so far was the sessions on film. And so I wanted someone great, and I wanted Sharon Lawrence. I knew she was the right person for the role. I didn't know her personally. I knew the director was going to go to her with the offer because I had, talked their ear off about why she had to do the part. And so the week that I knew the offer was going out, I wrote Sharon a very passionate letter about why I needed her to come to Florida and make this movie with me. And I found 5 people that I knew her or was like 1 degree off from her. And I got her the letter, and I think she got it through 2 of them in the end. And I had my phone number at the bottom of that letter. And like 3 days later, I got a phone call from Sharon, and she said, "Hi, this is Sharon Lawrence. Why don't you tell me why I should come to Florida and do this movie with you?" And I was like, "Let me sit down and gather my thoughts." And she did. She ended up coming. So I don't think that would have happened just through the offer. So I guess my point is, do it all. Do it all. Be the person that is just so passionate and so sure that this is the right person for your project, that the person themselves starts thinking, well, I don't know, maybe this person knows something I don't.
Great answer. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And, I think after this conversation, I'm sure the audience is appreciative. I certainly am. AFMX is. We've learned a little bit about each of you that we didn't know before. And, the music end, the film end. I think we should close this out and, just, I'm going to throw out some stuff and you just tell me which one you like better or which one you're into most. Just a few examples. I'll start off Jay-Z or Sean Combs. Rich?
Easy.
Annika?
Jay-Z.
Okay. Godfather 1 or Godfather Part 2?
1.
1.
Okay. Run DMC or Public Enemy?
Public Enemy.
Annika froze up there for a second.
What did you say, Annika?
Oh, Public Enemy.
Okay.
I just sound like I'm parroting my husband, which is not a good look.
Don't copy me.
I know. I mean, we're finding out a few things. Okay, here's one. Spike Lee or Tyler Perry?
Likely.
Spike Lee.
All right. Rolling Stones or the Beatles?
Rolling Stones.
Rolling Stones. God damn it, Rich, slow down.
Favorite James Bond?
Wait, you mean like the actor? The favorite
actor
that played James Bond?
Yeah.
Sean Connery.
You have to think about that? Sean Connery. It's all day long, Sean Connery.
Did I say it first? Did I get one first?
No.
Okay. Robert Downey Jr. or Robert De Niro?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I'm going to say Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, I'm going to say Robert Downey Jr.
Okay. Shirley MacLaine or Helen Mirren?
Helen Mirren.
Shirley MacLaine, just to be,
Different.
different.
Okay. For all the New Mexicans here, red chili or green chili?
Oh,
Really.
I can't do it, you guys. I can't do it. I've tried the Christmas thing. I can't do it. I can't do any of the chilies.
I knew enough to get you for Christmas then. Oh, this is a good one. Mary Poppins or The Sound of Music?
Sound of Music.
Mary Poppins.
Top Gun or Mission Impossible?
Sorry, that's because you've never seen The Sound of Music.
Fair. Top Gun. All day long.
Wait, Top Gun or what?
Mission Impossible.
Oh, Top Gun.
I had to tell you, Sage Mears says hello. I had this note right in the middle of these questions.
Oh. Oh.
Oh, this is a good one. I hope you have the right answer to this. Breaking Bad or The Sopranos?
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad.
My girl.
I mean, they're both, you guys, come on. They're like that, but I'll say Breaking Bad because,
Okay. The Wire or Narcos?
Wire.
How about Netflix or Amazon Prime for streaming?
Ah, man, it really just depends what's on.
I was going to say depends who's hiring.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the answer. Oh, this is a good one. Spielberg or Scorsese?
Scorsese.
Scorsese.
Ava DuVernay or Catherine Bigelow?
Catherine Bigelow.
Ava DuVernay.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Superman?
Okay. Seinfeld or Friends?
Seinfeld.
Seinfeld.
Grey's Anatomy or The Good Wife?
Good Wife.
Good Wife.
Oh, Black Panther or The Incredible Hulk?
Black Panther.
Black Panther.
Yeah, and we had Giancarlo on the other day and had a really great discussion about Chadwick Boseman, and yeah, it was pretty honoring. Oh, Albuquerque or Atlanta?
Albuquerque.
Of course, for filmmaking. Oh, Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Harry Potter.
None of the above.
Okay, that's fair.
No,
When
it's
Harry
not fair.
Met Sally or Love Actually?
Wait, what was it?
What?
When Harry Met Sally or Love Actually?
When Harry Met Sally.
Okay. Toy Story or Cars?
Toy Story.
Toy Story.
Charlie's Angels or Starsky and Hutch?
Well, hold on. The originals or the reboots?
Not the reboots, the originals.
Starsky and Hutch, all day long.
What about the reboots?
Neither.
Yeah, I'm with you. Where'd Annika go? She's laughing.
I didn't watch enough TV as a kid. I don't know.
Okay.
I've watched
Is
enough of
Starsky and
both.
Hutch? Is there a dog in that one?
Oh,
There a dog?
yeah.
Let's move on.
There's a cool.
No, it's a bear.
It's a bear.
Oh, I love bears. Starsky and Hutch.
Okay, you have to watch Starsky and Hutch. Red wine or white wine?
Oh, both. Both.
Okay.
Just mix
Oh, Sarah Jessica Parker or Sarah Paulson?
Sarah
Sarah
Paulson.
Paulson.
Matthew McConaughey or Matthew Broderick?
Broderick.
Matthew Broderick.
You see what I did there? Sarah Jessica Parker and Matthew Broderick, and back to back, they're a couple. You two are married. Okay.
Yes.
Matthew McConaughey and Broderick, we did. The Big Lebowski or The Big Chill?
Ooh. Big
I'm gonna
Lebowski.
go Big Chill. You're gonna go Lebowski. The more fun version of this would be I could tell you all of the things Rich was gonna say before he said them.
That's true.
I love it. Popcorn or candy at the movie theater?
Popcorn.
Oh, how cute. Sidney Poitier or Sidney Pollack?
They're both so good.
God.
Oh, both times two.
Yeah, I don't know how you.
Ken?
I don't think you can choose.
Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson?
Ali.
Muhammad Ali.
Okay, right. Those are the questions I had in the rapid fire. Thank you. I always think it's a lot of fun closing something out. And just to thank you both again for being part of the Intimate Conversation series. I really felt it was important for indie filmmakers and people in the industry, no matter what their position, to hear what you have to say in your journey in making this movie and how it all came about, and following you to make sure they know when it's going to be showing, where it's going to be showing, and killing Eleanor. I've seen it. I've been two eyes that have been on it. I am always impressed with filmmakers who pay attention to detail from beginning to end and love what they do, and it shows in this movie. It really does. So I can't wait for the world to see it. Any last pieces of advice you want to leave for the audience, when it comes to independent film? I know we talked about a lot today, but any piece of advice you just want to share before we sign off?
I guess the last thing I would say is just, what do we know? I mean, it's this, we had this one wonderful experience making an indie, and we're going to try to make some more. And I think the most important thing I could leave anybody with is just the fact that this is just this one experience. And if there was one way to do this, everyone would be doing it successfully. And I think it's important to keep in mind that whatever path opens up for you organically, or that you're able to pave for yourself, is the right path to make your film. And so I think it's important to hear people's stories because it can be very inspiring and very motivating, but it's also important not to get stuck in somebody else's blueprint, because the blueprint may only ever have existed for that one film. And so just stay innovative and creative and motivated, and keep looking for the open doors.
And I would just, all of that, and I would just say, you only fail if you quit.
Very important, Rich. Thank you for that. And we've heard that a few times from people this week, and it is so, so true. You only fail if you quit. Um, I don't think I have any more questions, but I do have one thing to say that, and it's repeating Joshua Michael Stern, the director who was on the other day. And I quote, people who do well in the industry play well in the industry. And you two play very well in the industry through genuine interest in others and building relationships with people that mean so much to you. And I just want to thank you for being a friend of the festival, and look forward to having you on many, many more times.
I love what you guys do. We're such fans.
Fans, yeah,
Thanks
thanks.
for having us.
Hope it was
Yeah.
helpful.
And that's going to wrap up this intimate conversation. Definitely check out what's going on with AFMX. This is the last day of the festival. This is the last event of the festival this week, but everything is available through October 4th. Check out the whole Intimate Conversation series on our Facebook page, Albuquerque Film and Music Experience. Check out the award show tonight, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. It's going to premiere live on our YouTube channel, which is ABQ Film Experience on YouTube. And there were some phenomenal films. Tune in with us to see some highlights of the intimate conversations, and see who wins the awards. It's going to be amazing. We have 12 categories to showcase tonight. But I want to just thank everybody for tuning into the entire festival and being a part of the experience. So have a nice evening, everyone. Check us out through abqfilmx.com. And once again, Rich, Annika, always a pleasure. Thank you for who you are and being a part of it.
Thank you so much.